Okay, so we're going to start with our workshop. Remind to be silent and let's enjoy this magnificent talk.
Thank you very much to Christopher, and hello everyone. This is our pleasure to be right here sharing with you our experience as YudLeads, the representatives, the official representatives of MUN Impact here in Ecuador, and also the organization who's leading MUN in Casa, the program that we created, or actually we adapted from MUN at Home, the original program from MUN Impact, to the Hispanic reality, to the Latin American reality. And during this workshop, actually, we're going to introduce the reasons why we decided to make so, why we started a new program, a new sense of a program for the Latin American kids, for the Latin American youth. So welcome once again, and thank you very much for sharing with us this time. Thank you again to Antonella and Camila, my partners in crime, just for being so incredible partners, colleagues, and fellow dreamers for the education of youth, empowerment of youth here in our region. So as you could read in the handbook, this is going to be in English. The next time that we are going to present this workshop is going to be in Spanish, but we are going to have this one in English. Okay, so please, if you have any questions, if you need someone to translate, you can write any of our volunteers. They can translate the question so that we can answer that in English. Okay, so having said that, we are going to move forward exactly to this. The reason why we decided to make this accessible to all the population or to the youth in Latin America. The reality in Latin America is very difficult. It's very difficult, and we all need to understand that even though Latin America is not the poorest region on earth, actually, it's the region with the highest inequality rates. This means that the people in Latin America have a lot of money, but on the other side, there's a lot of people in Latin America who doesn't really have a single coin just to live daily, in a daily basis. This means that here in the same region, we're going to have very deep differences between people. Latin America is a region that has a population approximately of 650,000 people, right? So we are a lot of people here in Latin America, but the problem is that a lot of these people doesn't even have the chance to have enough money for a daily meal. This means that, for example, if I use some numbers and statistics, the 30% of the population here in Latin America is living below the poverty threshold. This means that a lot of people is living with less than $1.90 a day. And the 10.7% of the people here in Latin America is even below that threshold. They are living in extreme poverty. This is a very, very, very difficult situation, the one that we have to deal with. Why? Because the opportunities of becoming, or getting a better economic and social status in Latin America depends on many factors, such as education, for example. And in many countries here in Latin America, we're going to find that the educational systems are really expensive. This means that a lot of the people who's living below the poverty threshold or the extreme poverty threshold is not going to be able to go to an educational system where they will get enough tools to become leaders, so to say. Okay. So that's the reason why we started to think about the possibility of bringing some new opportunities to the Latin American youth so that they can get these tools, these learnings, just to improve the situation of their families, of their locality, of their countries, I mean, their schools, or the whole region. Something important that we have to take into consideration as well is the fact that there is a correlation between the lack of education, the lack of access to the English learning processes, and this means that a lot of people here in Latin America is not going to be able to learn a second language as English, for example, and they are not going to be able to have a lot of opportunities. Okay, and there's a correlation here in our region. We're going to find that if you don't speak English, you're not going to be able to have access, like for example, to leadership roles in companies, governments, institutions, and you're going to receive a very low income. Okay, so that's why the whole region is not going ahead just as many other countries on air. Like, for example, the countries that are in the Middle East, some countries in the Middle East, in the Pacific Asia, right? Or like, for example, in Europe or North America. In this sense, who speaks English in Latin America? Students from private schools, the most of them, or private universities. The people who actually has high incomes during their or from their jobs or from their daily activities. So this means that only the people who lives in high income communities are going to be able to be speaking in English. And obviously there's another portion of people who get scholarships or something like that, and they start learning English, but it's a really low rate of the people who's going to have this possibility to get or to learn English. So this is the reason why we decided to bring MUN at home to the Latin American reality and make it in Spanish. How possible is it for a high school student to participate in a program like MUN at home? The reality is that it's not very possible. It is not possible in our region. There's just only a few students who can go abroad or participate in a program like MUN at home. And as YudLeads, we decided to bring it to Spanish because we believe that creating these opportunities for students is something that we need to do, because we are not the only ones who have to be able to get access or the opportunity or to be, so to say, privileged enough to go to the world, but we need to bring this to the rest of our people. Now, what was the process and why we decided to create MUN in Casa? At the very beginning, in April this year, we had the first conversations with MUN Impact headquarters in the United States. We decided to create a partnership. We decided to create something important, but we were looking forward to a long-standing cooperation and program where we were supposed to be starting our activities in September. We didn't think that the COVID-19 crisis was going to be so deep. And in this sense, we were not thinking about the possibility in the minimum wage. We were not thinking about the possibility of just bringing or creating something like an online academia or online program for students. But the reality is that in the other side of the world, in the United States, many students were thinking about this possibility. They said, okay, we're going to be in quarantine. We're not going to be able to go out. We're not going to be able to keep doing Model UN in the traditional sense, just going to conferences, I mean, presential conferences. And that's the reason why they had this brilliant idea of just creating like a program online that was going to be accessible to a lot of people on Earth, not only in their countries, but on Earth. In this sense, we heard about this and we started the conversation once again with MUN Impact and said, hey, if you're making this in English, probably we can make that in Spanish as well. So as MUN Impact Ecuador, we said, okay, we're going to take the lead in this process and we are going to take the challenge. And the challenge was very, very, very exhaustive, because we had to make a lot of translations. We had to adapt the curricula. We had to adapt the pedagogic, right, to our reality. And that is actually what my partners in crime are going to be talking about. So finally, we decided to create MUN in Casa, and this is how it all started.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to briefly walk you through our process of building a team and translating the materials. As Alejandro said before, we based this program on the English version, which is MUN at Home, and they had some materials ready. What are these materials? Are the story maps. I will show you in just a couple of minutes what they are and how they look in the Spanish version. So we had an international team made up of people who were very eager to participate in creating this opportunity for the Spanish-speaking community. And we had people coming from Ecuador, Mexico, Argentina, Spain, and the United States. As you might see with these countries, we had very different time zones. And so we had to coordinate. We had to say, okay, in Spain, it's 7 a.m. So can we do it here? Or is it going to be 12 p.m. for us? Okay, and then we had to really communicate with all of the members of our team in order to see the best time where we could meet, and also to take into consideration all of the other activities that we were all doing at the same time. So what happened as well is that we had to take some decisions. Some of these decisions involved, for example, what is going to be our way of communicating. Why do I tell you this? Because in the English version of like MUN at Home, they used Slack. Slack is a platform, you're probably familiar with it. It's a platform used in very big enterprises to facilitate the communication in between teams and departments. But for us in Latin America, it was something that we weren't really used to seeing or using. So we figured out, we tried it at the beginning, and then we ended up with people not receiving notifications, others being just lost on how to work with Slack because it's not such an easy platform. And so we decided, okay, let's use what we in the Spanish-speaking countries know for sure that works as a way of communication. So we used WhatsApp. And so we still have actually that group of the mentors in which we had a direct way of communicating with the rest of the team, with us who were organizing everything. And that way we were able to talk about the due date and also get together every material that we needed to collect new material and also to translate some of the bases that were fundamental to the beginning of MUN in Casa, which are the story maps, right? We began the first round of MUN in Casa talking about the SDG 5.1, which is gender equality. So I will show you in this slide what I'm talking about when I refer to the story map. The story maps are a website in which you will find a lot of information of specific SDGs. So right now we were talking about gender equality, and what you will find in this page is an enormous quantity of resources, links, and other documents that have information regarding the actual what is going on regarding the SDG we're talking about in the world and also in specific regions of the world. So what we did is we worked together to translate this English story map into Spanish. What was amazing about this is that we had bilingual people. So pretty much all of the team spoke Spanish and English. And then we also had Anto, who is a certified translator, and she was always helping us to check any mistakes that we could have made. So we had a very organized leadership team that helped us end up with a very high quality product.
Now, what we had to do just was to face the challenge number 2. And that challenge was to adapt the content and pedagogy to the Latam context. And this is very, very important. Why? Because we are different, and we know that our culture, probably our language, has some situations or characteristics that are very important to keep in mind at the very moment of creating a whole program. This means that, for example, all the information that was available on the websites, or for example in MUN Impact sites, official sites, were in English. And the reality is that many of our students were not able to be speaking in English. That's the reason why we said, okay, we need something that's going to be like accessible to everyone, and that is going to be easy to understand for all the people who is attending to our classes. In this sense, we started to use some of the materials that we as YudLeads have. Actually, Anto is going to talk about that later. But the reality is that we have some cultural characteristics that are kind of different. Like, for example, the way we start and we develop these kind of Zoom meetings, right? So we need to create a sense of engagement with our people. We need to create a sense of, hey, if I can make this internationally, you can make so. And that's the reason why you're attending to this conference. You're gonna learn something, but you need to feel that the Latin American identity is very important. And even though now you're learning something that you probably probably will use in the future, you will have to keep this identity within your side, within your soul, so that you reflect what you really are instead of trying to become something that you do necessarily or that you are not necessarily like. Okay, and then the Model UN experience. Something that we realized was that the Model UN experience is somehow different between the Latin American countries than the English-speaking countries. Actually, some of the rules of procedure, for example, are different. Here in Ecuador, we actually use like an Ecuadorian rules of procedure, so right? Because we have been doing Model UN like for 25 years now, but the process or how Model UN arrived to Ecuador was very different to how it all started in the United States or in Europe. So MUN at home was actually, or they were using some of the materials, like for example, from Thailand, which is in the Netherlands, or from Nisman, which is in the United States, but they didn't have materials in Spanish or adapted to the reality of our continent. That's the reason why we had to adapt MUN at home to the rules of procedure that we use here in Latin America. We had to compare the Model UN programs and procedures that the students were using in Argentina or that they were using in Mexico, and try to create a single one that reflects all our traditions or all our characteristics. Then we had digital platforms, right? So in MUN at home, they started using Edmodo just because of the situation of some of the countries where the Google platform is not allowed. In this sense, here in Latin America, we all use, or at least a big majority of the people use the Google platform. So we decided to use Google Classrooms instead of Edmodo. And finally, we decided to create something that holds our identity, that holds our language, that holds our creeds, in order to reflect that the Latin American youth has something to say to the world. Now I give the floor to Cami.
Thank you. Yes. As I was saying before, one of the main objectives that we had with MUN in Casa was to give quality education for the Spanish-speaking delegates. So why do we think this is important? Because education, formal education, is not enough to become a better person, to have a more broad perspective of the world. We think that MUN can help everyone acquire these new abilities as well as a new perspective on what is happening around the world. So what was for us very, very important is to have a leadership team in which we had everything organized. So I'm gonna quickly explain to you how this works in case any of you are interested also in participating in these sessions in our next rounds. So what we had is we had a lead mentor. This lead mentor was someone with a lot of experience in the MUN field, in teaching. And so what we try to do with this is to offer a guidance not only to the students and the delegates, but also to the mentors. Why? Because it sometimes can be difficult to become a mentor and having to guide a whole group of people, not only on debates, but also answering questions about the activities we were doing, about more difficult topics and more academic also topics such as international relations or international law. And so the lead mentor was this crucial point of connection between the experience acquired from, professions. Like we had Alejo, who is graduate from international relations. We have Anto, who is a professional teacher, and then we have students from universities studying law, political science. So we have the experience and knowledge that is going to be shared with the mentors. The mentors were high schoolers who were willing to participate in this round of MUN in Casa, and also to become a guidance to the delegates. And then we have all of the delegates, and that was basically our structure. So what were the key elements behind the success of this structure? First, cultural enrichment. This meant that we were very open to listening and learning about the different ways of doing any MUN. For example, we had a lot of difference between Ecuador and Mexico, Ecuador and Argentina, even with Spain. And also regarding that, we were learning every day, learning new things about, like, okay, how they use the language in Spain and in Colombia and then in Mexico. And then this brought us a little bit closer. Our difference actually brought us closer into having a very cooperative work. That meant that with our lead mentors, we worked very closely into preparing the Google Classroom, preparing the classes, and also working with the delegates to try to make them to their full potential. This couldn't have been possible if it weren't for our communication. The communication channels were key in a sense where if a mentor had any doubts at all about the procedure, the content of the session, they would automatically ask the lead mentor, and if it were needed, they could contact a closer leadership team, which was in charge of YudLeads. Then the guidance and the preparation both work together, because we were not looking a formal structure in which the teacher knows it all and the student only listens. We were actually thinking about creating a path for the delegate to start and then continue to explore by himself. Us lead mentors and mentors were only a guidance in any case that any student would get lost or try to understand, a bit more about it. We could help them explore, as I said, their full potential.
So I was in charge of designing a pedagogic strategy, and the main aim of MUN and Casa was to be delegate-centered and more mentor-friendly. I conceived this idea based on the new modern school of pedagogy. Maybe you are students, but there are two very important schools of pedagogic streams that are Maria Montessori's and Paulo Freire's one, that are particularly famous in Latin America. So how we develop this? We focus on the aspects of what students may encounter and perceive when receiving and processing all the given informations. Here the delegates are to learn, to incorporate tools, and not to compete for the prize of best delegate. That was our first aim. Delegates, mentors, and lead mentors had to learn from each other, because there is no superior learning there is no superior figure in the learning process, and that was stated and clear from the very beginning. We learned from the delegates learned from us, and that is how we were able to continue and empower this process. Taking into account these foundations that we had all agreed inside the YudLeads team, the lead mentors were supported, as Camila explained before, by two mentors, but not only to provide support, but also to be able to keep a closer eye on the delegates and to really help them all through the entire process. Mentors and lead mentors attended a workshop that Alejo and I taught at that moment before the beginning of the first round that focused on the understanding of this idea, the understanding of the process of learning that has to be both ways. We learn from the delegates learn from us, and how to imprint this Latin American feeling and spirit to be kind, to be open, to be friendly, and to be prepared. The material that was selected both for mentors and for the delegates was tailored to the needs and adjusted as the round and sessions went by, with the aim of improving and shaping the entire process, and again, imprinting this Latin American spirit.
Another thing that was at first a great challenge for us was how to create engagement. We had around 60 people signing up for our weekly sessions. And so we thought, okay, let's not make this a university talk in which we have 3 people talking and everyone else just concentrating on something else, maybe paying a bit of attention and then just getting lost on what was happening. So we tried to make every session interactive, and not only interactive, but also useful for the participants. How did we do that? We had to look for the profiles of people who were inspiring. We had 5 amazing special guests. We have 4 of them here in the picture. They all gave us different points of views from their own perspective and their own specialty. Yeah. So we had the director of a university. We have someone who is in charge, who's also a legal counselor for a university here from Quito, Ecuador. We have someone working also for the UN, and also for our final debate, we had the person who started an NGO in Ecuador here as well, and that now it's a very big enterprise. So why did we do that? It was because we were always looking to inspire the youth. We were looking for them to ask questions. And I remember the first session, we realized that this was going to work because we had Matias come talk to us about his experience and how he's, managing various programs in his university in Argentina. And we had some of the kids ask questions just like, how do I take away the fear of talking in front of the people? What are your recommendations on how to become more open and speak more freely? So you see, they were actually enjoying the presentation, and they were acquiring very useful practical information to put into practice in our sessions. So we did not only have this special guest, but we also engaged in very powerful debates about topics that we changed every week that were related to our main topic, which was gender equality. In these debates, participants could share not only their thoughts, but also their calls to action. We developed a couple of solutions, and also a lot of ideas came from this first round of MUN and Casa that we're very excited to put into action in the next in a near future, let's say. But the participants were very, very interested in coming to the sessions. All of them were always willing to participate, and this showed that our engagement was very good with the kids.
So after settling the parameters and deciding that the weekly sessions were to take place every Saturday, the amount of material was more than the available time. So the team came up with the idea of holding meetings in between the week. What for? You may ask. Round 1 of MUN and Casa was, for most of the delegates, the first experience in MUN. So that is the reason why they needed further training, support, and guidance in order to feel more confident. So lead mentors and mentors decided to arrange meetings that would take place during the week to help delegates with the follow-up and to solve any issues regarding research, MUN procedures, and other related issues. Fortunately, these extra meetings proved to be the right solution to help students to feel more confident during the final debate. Most of them carried out sound research, implemented the proper vocabulary for the occasion, and knew how to proceed during the closing debate. One of the highlights of the Saturday sessions was the spontaneous asking for extra debates on world issues connected to the SDGs. Students had 20-minute sessions with their mentors and lead mentors during the weekly meetings of Saturdays, and in one of the committees, the delegates came up with the idea of holding optional debates to discuss and share thoughts on general issues such as human rights, sustainability, women empowerment, education, and gender inequality. This requirement was not left unheard, and the entire organization committee of YudLeads decided to frame this idea into optional debates that would take place on Sunday middays and moderated by the members of the YudLeads team of MUN and Casa.
And this is
finally,
very important.
Oh, sorry, Alejo.
No worries, Anto.
It's okay.
Yes, you can go on.
Okay. One of the hardest challenges that we also discovered during these optional debates was to address the usage of formal language during the UN sessions. Yes, one of the features that has to be respected during the MUN debates. Since some delegates, again, were beginners, they felt lost and unable to express themselves properly without feeling that they were doing something wrong. So the idea of going into formal language and growing into this formal language was a possible solution. In order to achieve this goal, the delegates were encouraged to speak and give their opinions freely at the beginning of the round, and then getting into step by step the formal language and the spectre structures to be later used during the final debate. Several documents were provided to design, some of them drafted by Camila, by Alejo, study guides, PDFs, YouTube videos, etc. This planning reaped the benefits during the closing round. All the delegates were able to speak properly, express their points of view politely and sharply, and the expected range of structures of vocabulary was used. Finally, it is important to highlight the way the mentors and lead mentors provided feedback to the delegates. Kindness and friendliness above all was one of our premises, but most importantly, positive involvement. Students felt more confident and more comfortable to speak freely if they feel that they are not being judged. If there was something to be adjusted, the way to do was through clear, sharp, and positive comments that were generally made by trained mentors and lead mentors. As you can see, there are some comments there, such as "you are doing it very well. This is the first step towards your future as local and global leaders. Now you know about how you can change the world, you can share it with others. After this experience, we're sure that you will start the change in your cities. And also you are the first generation that has the possibility and all the tools to be game changers around the world."
And actually, what was the final outcome? What was the result of all this process? We can only say that it was very positive, and it was very positive for all the students, and not only for them, but also for mentors and lead mentors, as is our case. Actually, when we read these kind of messages, we can only say, yes, we did it, but this is just only the beginning. And actually, we're going to make more in order to contribute to youth empowerment. MUN is just only a pretext just to go and reach more delegates, more students, just the youth. What we need to do right now is to expand our skills, expand our possibilities, expand our programs so that you can become part of this. Not only as a YudLeads member, which you can be, and actually in a couple weeks, we're going to launch different programs and initiatives, but also becoming part of MUN Impact and MUN in Casa. We're going to have new sessions. We're going to have new processes where you can be part of, and actually you can become the leader that the world needs. As we always say within YudLeads, this is the very first generation that can make a change. You have the technology, you have the possibilities, you have the knowledge. Right now, the school is in our houses. The school is right in front of you. You can learn whatever you want. And in this sense, you have the responsibility to do something. You have the responsibility to start working for your population, for your nation, for your country, for your world. The world needs you. But at the same time, we are the last generation who can make this a reality. Actually, this is something that former Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, said. And we hold these words as if they were our words. We believe and we have the creed that we need to start the change. And that is the reason why we decided to create MUN in Casa. You can read some of the reflections, you can read some of the comments that some of the students who are actually now volunteers in this World Summit said. They are now, or they believe right now, in the power of youth. They believe in the power of youth empowerment, because this is going to be a seed that is going to be very big in a not very far away future, but it's going to be in a couple days, in a couple months. The world needs to change right now. We're facing a huge challenge, which is COVID. And now is the time when you have to start learning about the world, about the SDGs, about United Nations, not because you're going to be a diplomat or something like that, but because you're going to be a global citizen. And as a global citizen, you have the responsibility to work for your world. Right now, we just want to end this exposition just sharing something that we created out of all the materials, out of all the homeworks that our students submitted during the process. I hope that you enjoy it. And actually, if you have any further questions, please, I invite you to start writing on the chat, or I don't know how the process is going to be, but you can make them. In the meantime, just watch this video. This video is just a reflection of how MUN in Casa was and how is it going to be in the future, in the future rounds and sessions of these amazing process and program. Here is the video. Please, can anyone confirm me if you can see the video? Please, can you see that now? All right. I'm sorry about that. En realidad, ¿sí? Así que recuerden, en este programa vamos a proponer soluciones, a tomar acción y sobre todo vamos a promover la acción de los jóvenes. Más allá solo.
ODS 5.1 es poner fin de todas las formas de discriminación contra todas las mujeres y todas las niñas de todo el mundo. El mundo te necesita. Comienza ahora. Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Gracias.
Carta de las Naciones Unidas 1757-63.
Yo diría que tal vez son el Producto Interno Bruto de cada país, y si el 0,5% del Producto Interno Bruto de cada país, ahí se financia una ONG.
My message is that we'll be watching
Si
you.
sos joven, tienes que saber esto. La vida se te escapa y se te va minuto a minuto. Y no puedes ir al supermercado y comprar vida.
Somos una comunidad en la que cada vida y cada persona cuenta. Queridas conciudadanas, queridos conciudadanos, el coronavirus está modificando actualmente en forma dramática la vida de nuestro país. Nuestra idea de normalidad, de vida pública, de convivencia social, está siendo puesta a prueba como nunca antes. Millones de ustedes no pueden ir a trabajos, sus hijos no pueden ir a la escuela o jardines infantiles. Los teatros, cines y negocios están cerrados y lo que quizás sea lo más difícil, a todos nos faltan los encuentros en los que otros tiempos son obvios. Naturalmente, en semejante situación estamos llenos de interrogantes y preocupaciones acerca de lo que
Unidos. Un delegado recibe un país y tiene que representar lo que pasa en ese país y cuál es la postura de ese país. Y sobre todo, más allá de eso, ustedes ya conversarán en sus comités sobre qué es exactamente el modelo de Naciones Unidas. Me quedo con qué habilidades nos van a desarrollar los modelos de ONU. Aprender, estudiar muchísimo, investigar, aprender a ser buenos comunicadores, organizar nuestro trabajo bajo presión. Sí, ¿por qué? Porque en la vida real en Naciones Unidas nos toca tomar decisiones bajo presión y sobre todo proponer soluciones. ¿Sí?
Por eso yo creo que sería mejor una campaña de influencia en educación de discriminación para todas las edades, tanto como para los padres como para los hijos que tengan esta información y la educación necesaria.
Alguien preguntaba sobre cuál es el impacto de la ONU en la vida de la gente, porque aquí estamos tratando de vida o muerte.
Thank you very much for that opportunity to all your delegates who have been part of MUN in Casa. This was an amazing experience. And actually what we wanted to share with you was how we felt about the possibility of seeing new leaders in our country, in our region, in whole Latin America and the Hispanic world. Actually, nowadays we're living a very difficult moment. We're living a very difficult situation where racism, where difference, discrimination just based on your origin, the language you speak, or the color of your skin is very deep and it's harming our society. In this sense, the youth is the one who can heal the world. Not only as the song says, but this is gonna be a reality. This is gonna be a reality. We can heal the world, guys. So thank you very much on behalf of YudLeads, MUN Impact Ecuador, and MUN in Casa for hearing this experience. And actually, someone is asking, how can we start something? It just depends on you. It depends on how far you want to go and how far you want to arrive with your ideals, with your dreams. You can make them reality. You have YudLeads, you have MUN Impact. You can always approach to us and say, hey, can you help us? We can make that. We are going to create a huge community in Latin America, and we're going to build this different world from the grassroots, from you guys, from the youth. Okay, so thank you very much on behalf of the whole organization. I hope that this was very, very inspiring to you. And I don't know if Anto and Camila want to say something else. And in addition to that, if you have any question, you can always approach to us on or via our emails or via our social media. Anto and Cami, thank you very much. And to all my team, once again, thank you. Anto and Cami.
Thank you. I just wanted to say the same thing. I'm going to quickly address the question that I saw on the chat. Something that is very important to know when you start a project like MUN in Casa or any MUN project at all is that you need to have a team of people in which you can trust and in which you can rely on. So very important to build that community feeling with your team. It is something that we as YudLeads have always tried to do, working with the volunteers, with organizing this Spanish Spanish summit. It's very important to have that, to have a team in which you can rely on and you can trust, so that everything else will be built around that. And you will find that not only you work well together, but you can also have fun while working on things like creating a document of parliamentary procedure. So that is very important. And then another thing that you guys should always keep in mind is to speak out. Speak out, but always with the respect that characterizes our generation. And what I mean with this is, okay, if you have a teacher that tells you, hey, MUN is not good for anything, like, why do you need that if you're studying math? So tell them, okay, it's to broaden my perspective. I cannot be one of the people that only study math or chemistry or biology and stay with that. You know, MUN and all of this, any extracurricular activities will help you form a more international, a broader way of looking at things. So that is very important, guys. Always speak out. And as Alejo said, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and any questions we are very open to answer through those channels.
Well, I would like just to thank the opportunity to be in part of this. I'm also working as an interpreter here, so I'm kind of rushing too. But I would like to address the question that was issued in the chat. I am a teacher. I am an English teacher, and I truly believe that this is one of the ways of teaching students to implement language, to become global citizens, and to really find a passion on something, regardless if they're going to pursue a career connected to international relations or connected to law. Actually, I'm not interested in that. I am just an interpreter, and I really appreciate and I really value the opportunity of working in these environments. So I think that we can all learn from each other. I'm a firm believer that I learn every day from my students, and I think that MUN is an opportunity to enlarge that. So thanks, and I hope to see you in other meetings.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to y'all for coming.
Thank you. I think we can take a picture before everyone has to go. So if you could help us turning on your cameras. And Alejo, can you stop screen sharing, please?
Yay. All right.
Okay, so everyone please turn on your cameras, look at the camera, and at the count of 3, I will take the screenshot. Okay, so everyone ready? Smile, 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you very much, guys. See you in the next, the next session. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Hey, so finally, let's give a virtual applause to our presenters and all staff members who make this possible. Thank you all for being with us this morning. Without doubt, this has been a great workshop. Always remember that beyond any circumstances which we are facing now, today is the hour to take action. Let's be the generation that will truly give the first step towards a significant global change. Keep in mind that our limits go further the sky. So let's see you in the next workshops. Thank you, Alejo, Anton, and Cam.